Hi there, my name's Colton, and today I'll review how to set up pre-filled oxygen, industrial oxygen, and prescribed oxygen tanks. Just so you know, industrial tanks are also known as CGA 540, and prescribed tanks are known as CGA 870. Before beginning to set up your oxygen, you'll first want to attach the oxygen tubing to your ozone generator. Attach the end of the tubing with the lure lock to the oxygen in port on the ozone generator. Now that your tubing is ready to be connected to your oxygen source, we can begin the setup. When setting up the pre-filled oxygen tanks, you'll remove the dust cap from the top of the O2 regulator and the dust cap on top of the pre-filled tank. Then, you'll screw the regulator into the top of the tank. Once this is done, you can take the oxygen tubing that's connected to your ozone generator and put the end of the tubing with no lure lock onto this fitting on the regulator. To open the tank, make sure that the regulator is set to 0. Then turn this knob counterclockwise until the needle on the face of the regulator jumps up to pressure. At this point, you can set the regulator to whichever speed you would like. To set up an industrial oxygen tank, you'll first attach your industrial tank regulator. We have two regulators available on the PromoLife website. One is our standard regulator, which you'll need a wrench to tighten. The other is our gold regulator, which can be hand tightened and has a higher PSI range, which gives it a longer lifespan. These both operate in the same way once they've been attached to the oxygen tank, but in this video I'll be using the gold style regulator. To attach this regulator, you'll screw it onto the threading that's on the side of the tank. Be sure that when you're tightening it, to keep the face of the regulator at an upwards angle, as this will make it easier to view the pressure when in use. Once this is done, you can take the oxygen tubing connected to your ozone generator and put the end of the tubing with no lure lock onto this fitting on the regulator. Make sure your regulator is first set to off. You'll then turn the tank valve counterclockwise until you see the needle on the face of the regulator jump to pressure. Once this is done, you can set your flow rate to whichever speed you would like. To set up a tank that was prescribed to you by your doctor, you will first attach your oxygen tank regulator. We have two regulators for this style of tank. One of them is a standard regulator, and the other is a gold regulator, with a higher PSI range, giving it a longer lifespan. These both operate in the same way once they've been attached to the oxygen tank, but in this video I'll be using the gold style regulator. To attach this regulator to the tank, you'll first unscrew the T-bar. Once you've done this, you'll align the pins on the regulator with the holes on the tank, and then tighten the T-bar to screw it in. Now that your regulator is attached, you can take the oxygen tubing connected to your ozone generator and put the end of the tubing with no lure lock onto this fitting on the regulator. Make sure that your regulator is set to off, and then you'll turn the tank valve counterclockwise until you see the needle on the face of the regulator jump up to pressure. Once this is done, you can set your flow rate to whichever speed you would like. All the oxygen tanks work the same when shutting them down. To turn off your oxygen, you'll first turn the tank valve clockwise until it is tight. Now that the tank is closed, you will see that the regulator needle is still showing pressure. This is the remaining pressure between the closed tank valve and the regulator itself. To relieve this pressure, you will turn your regulator to 2 LPM until the needle is back down to red or refill. Before doing this, you will always want to ensure that you have in fact closed the tank valve, or else you will be draining your oxygen. Once the regulator's needle has gone down, you can set the regulator back to 0 or off. Now, you've finished setting up your oxygen source. Thanks for watching. Check out our other YouTube videos for more information, and be sure to follow us on social media. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button and hit that notification bell for future videos.